Okay, good day, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. Thank you so much for joining. I can see quite a lot of people already on this webinar this evening. I'm speaking to you from Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, and we're so excited to have you join us for today's webinar, essentially. And my name is Ifeoluwa Ariyo Agbaje. I'm the Partnerships and Communications Lead here at Vesti, and I'll be your host for today's session. Very quickly, I would like to encourage you, please just in the chat box, let's know where you're joining us from across the globe. We'd like to see the diverse set of people and demography of people that are with us for this webinar this evening. Please, let's see in the chat box where you're joining us from. We would like to know. We'd like to hear from you. Just introduce yourself in the chat box and tell us you're speaking to or you're joining this session from. Anywhere you are across the globe, it will be exciting to really know. Once again, welcome to this webinar. The topic for today's webinar is a very interesting one, and we're excited to have resource persons who will be speaking to this topic. The topic is how I ended up in a top university in the USA with zero tuition. How I ended up in a top university in the USA with zero tuition. Thank you so much. I can see Rachel from Lagos. I can see Rachel from Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us. Please let's know in the chat box where you are joining us from this evening. I can see Temitope Didikpe, also from Lagos, Nigeria. Fantastic, fantastic, amazing people joining us this session. And just last week, we had a session similar to this, which was about how you can fund your STEM and MBA studies in Canada and in the USA. If you missed that session, do well to go to our YouTube page to go watch that particular session. It promises to be very, very eye-opening and enlightening. Once again, if you missed last week's session on how you can fund your MBA or STEM course in Canada or the USA, do well to visit our YouTube page at Vesti App. Just look for Vesti App on YouTube, and you'll be able to see that particular video and even many other videos, free webinars that we've been able to do in the past that speaks to what we do here at Vesti. I can see Stephen from Jaws played, so thank you so much. We're so excited to have you join us. Once again, my name is Ifeoluwa, and I'm the Partnerships and Communications Leader at Vesti. This is Vesti. We are the preferred provider of legal and financial services for immigrants. From the moment that you decide that you want to move from a source country to a destination country, and every moment after, we are there to guide you every step along the way. We are solving two fundamental problems at Vesti, the messy immigration right now and the worst financial mobility. These are typically pain points of immigrants as they move from different source countries to destination countries across the globe. And we are poised and positioned to solving this problem one day at a time. We are tackling them, and we've been able to develop a proprietary tool that brings together migration pathways and financial services together on one platform, which is the Vesti app. We are so excited about the future we are building. I want to encourage you, if you have not downloaded the Vesti app or you don't even know what the Vesti app avails you, please do want to visit your Google Play or App Store and download the Vesti app. It's the operating system for human and capital global mobility. Essentially, for the very first time, immigrants can visualize their migration journey from the beginning till they get to the destination country. That's one laudable thing that we've been able to do at Vesti, and we keep building every day, one step along the way. Once again, I want to welcome you to this webinar. Once again, we'll be talking about how I ended up in a top university in USA with zero tuition. And I'm not going to be doing this today alone. I have amazing people who will be joining me for this session today. If you are just joining us, please do well to let us know in the chat box where you are joining us from across the globe. And if you have, peradventure, you have questions at the end of this session, please, as the session unfolds, do well to drop your question in the chat box, and we will do well to address those questions as long as time permits us on this session. This promises to be very interactive. It's an exciting topic that we are so happy that you are a part of this evening. So very quickly, I will just be introducing my guests who will be joining me on this session. Before I introduce my main guest, I want to also recognize the presence of Olubumi Opadoyin, who is a senior migration and business analyst at Vestige. She will also be speaking on chiming in on this conversation today. Olubumi, please say hello to our listening audience.
All right. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone. As stated, my name is Opadoyin Olubumi, and I look forward to having an exciting conversation. Hello, Atinike. It's lovely meeting you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much, Olubumi. We are so excited to have you join us too. And also joining me for this session this evening is Atinuke Elizabeth Ayowole Muli, who is both a programs manager and strategy consultant and a political scientist. She has consulted for several national and international non-profit organizations, including the British-owned Voluntary Service Overseas, VSO, and One World Africa, a premier neurodivergent educational organization in Nigeria. As a political scientist, our research explores American political behavior, comparative political communications, and the intersection between education, democracy, and governance. She has presented her papers in major global conferences in the political science field, including at the foremost African Political Science Association. She is in the process of completing her PhD in political science at Southern Illinois University, Cambodia. Atinuke Elizabeth is an academic fellow at the Heritage Foundation, US, and a lifetime member of the National Political Science Honor Society, Pi Sigma Alpha. She holds a BSc in International Law and Diplomacy from Babcock University, Nigeria, and a Master's in Public Policy from Liberty University with high distinction. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to this session this evening, Ms. Atinuke Elizabeth Ayowole Muli.
Thank you so much, Ifeoluwa. Can you hear me? Just to be sure everyone else.
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Again, I am Atinuke Elizabeth Ayowole Muli. And it's nice to be here to share some insight about this topic, how I ended up in a top university in the US with zero tuition. There are 5 key points that I have highlighted that I think would holistically encapsulate the focal point of our conversation or discussion here this evening. And I think that would be a good starting point. And then we can take questions after, just to also encourage interactions, and I'm trying to answer as many questions as possible. So going straight to the point, the first key point I would start with respect to the topic would be positioning. So there's this conception, you have this concept in mind, you want to study it at you want to do a graduate study in the United States, you want to do it with zero tuition or even a fully funded offer. Positioning comes first. Positioning should be the first thing that you think. And what is positioning? I have a personal principle that I live by, and that is that it is not when you decide to go for something that you begin to prepare for it. And I understand that life happens. You can just take a pivotal point at any point in life and decide to do something different from every other thing you've always done. And if that is the case, what I would say is set up a timeline, have a timeline and with that timeline, set up achievable milestones within that timeline. So you have some things that you want to do. You want to get into this position, but you don't necessarily have the professional or just the background to support it because you've been doing something else, or just because of whatsoever reason it is. Set up that timeline, make it achievable, set some achievable milestones to keep you accountable. And with that, you also set up it also helps you to better position yourself, and then with that you just shoot for it. Something else I would I think is also necessary to talk about in terms of positioning is extracurriculars. You cannot just underestimate or undermine the role of extracurriculars in positioning. Extracurriculars could come in the form of the volunteering opportunities that you avail yourselves to, the conferences you go to, whether they're academic conferences, whether they're non-academic conferences, whether they are semi-academic conferences, so say Model United Nations conferences, for example, or seminars, whichever one that you are doing. Conferences are very good opportunities for you to meet with like minds, meet with other people that are doing what you're doing or doing what you intend to do and talk with them. Could be a good opportunity to find a professor, say in a school in the United States or in any country, but since the United States is the focus here, that's where also school. Find a professor there. Just engage the professor. If the professor has sat on an admissions board before, ask the professor about what do you think is the most important thing that the admissions committee look forward to in your school? What are you most interested about in this school? Well, just ask a lot of questions, engage the professor. And if it's just a student is at the school, what do you think is something that stood you out in your application? What do you think is how many schools did you get admitted into, and what was the defining point between the school you eventually chose and the ones that you did not choose? Or just different things that could just really set you. And conferences are also good for your resume. They are good for the professional outlook. They, in many ways, help you to structure your professional pedigree, to put it that way. And while doing this as well, there's a sense of and the need to present your best professional image across. And we'll talk about that down the line. But the third thing I'm going to talk about with respect to positioning would be relationships. And that would quite be a reoccurring theme throughout the 5 focal points I'm going to talk about. Relationships. To me, relationships are currencies. Just the same way money is a currency, you can use it to, you can tender it anywhere as the legal tender. Relationships are also currencies. Relationships can be the difference between a single position that you may get or you may not get. Relationships have opened doors for me that it wasn't like I wasn't qualified for those opportunities, but they made it easier to get into those particular opportunities. And on the flip side as well, I have, there are situations where I had to leave a job for one reason or the other and had to move on to, some better things in life. Perhaps I have a little notice to give to the job. One thing I always ensure to do is to make sure that, depending on the situation of things, I have a replacement. I look for a replacement by myself. I have the replacement and I tender it forward. Oh, this is a proposal for someone you could consider. I know I have a short notice to give to you at that time. And more often than not, that person is always accepted, just because there is a sense of value system that I believe I have positioned or tendered towards the company that makes it just very easy to just employ or accept that, oh, this person coming from this person, it's very easy for us to trust that this person would do good work. It's all about good work, right? It's just like Ifeoluwa. When Ifeoluwa reached out to me, the first thing that came to my mind was, it does good work. So let's get this. Yeah, no problem. That was the first thing. So that's the power of relationships. It's currencies. It gets you in the door, even easily. It gets you in places you probably would not even think you could get to. And it's very versatile. It's not just limited to one opportunity. So that's also involved. And relationships, one thing I would say with respect to positioning is that the quality of relationships that you seek to attain should also be the standard that you are aiming to bring yourself up to, or you're aiming to personally or individually achieve or attain at yourself, because everyone in life is also looking for someone that is better than them, or at least is at the same pace as they are, because everyone wants to sort of, everyone wants to sort of, be better than themselves. There's this saying that you're the average of 5 people that you surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself with 4 foolish people, then you are the most foolish person and you're right at the center. And that is true. It's the same thing if you surround yourself with 5 wise people or 4 wise people, you are right at the center. You make the 5th wisest person right at that center. So that is basically what relationships is about. It also helps your perception and how you choose and how you eventually view a lot of things. It helps your value systems as well. It's a reflection of your value systems as well. The next key point I will talk about is preparation. So positioning, you've envisioned, you have the mindset that you want to study in the United States, you know what you want to do, you know how, probably not how you want to do it, you're just figuring it out. But the most important thing is that your mindset has gone way ahead of you in what you want to do. You've started the process of initiating relationships that could also sponsor, grow the mindset that is already in you, brood upon the mindset that is already in you, such that it enlarges it. It begins to make it more visually possible, more realistic in your mind. So you are not yet doing anything practical about it, but just growing the mindset and sending your mindset ahead of you already. Your mindset is already in the United States, way ahead of your body, of your person being there. Preparation, the second key point, is now the practical steps that you take to, to begin to get yourself there. So preparation looks like sending that cold email to professors, whether it's the graduate program is a master's or a PhD, whatever it is, send that cold email. And there's a very huge likelihood that they're not going to get it. And if they get it, it's going to come back non-affirmative. It's not going to be a positive response. But a no is better than a regret. A no is better than, I also live by the principle that the worst I can get is a no. So I might just do it. And if I get a no, it's better for me to know that it was a no, especially if it's something that I really want to do and you just are not able to know whether it's going to work out or not, or whether it's an opportunity you're going to be granted or not. Just go for it. And if you email as many as possible, the more it increases your chance that at least one person will get back to you. And also there is the due diligence about if this person is also doing something in line of if this professor is doing something in line of what you're doing. And in addition to emailing professors, another thing I'm going to talk about with respect to positioning is also finding fellow Nigerians or someone in the school that is doing something similar to what you're doing or with similar interests. And it could come from LinkedIn and GitHub. I mean, those are more professional places to find, people that are doing similar work to what you're doing or what you intend to do. Facebook is a good place. As old school as many people think it is, I still think it's a good place. So most university groups, say international students group, or even just normal departmental groups are on Facebook. They're still on Facebook and quite active on Facebook. If you go through the list of members, you'll find people that you could reach out to and tell them and talk to them and just have some form of engagement, have someone that is already there that can give you insight into what you're doing. And you may eventually realize that it may pave a very long way for you. And at the same time, it may make you realize that it's not what you want at the end of the day. It's not a place you want to go to at the end of the day. There is also the aspect of starting the essays. But even before that, before we get to all those, the part about the essay, there's the aspect of standardized tests that I think, so for some schools require standardized tests, some do not, and some programs do, some programs also do not. Do the due diligence to know if your school and your program, that is your course of study, requires you to submit a standardized test. So standardized tests in the context of graduate studies would be the GRE, which is the graduate record exam. SATs and ACTs are for undergraduate admissions. And generally speaking, for undergraduate admissions, there are not as many scholarships as there are for graduate studies in the United States. More scholarship opportunities for undergraduates are more for US citizens, for the United States citizens, than there are for international students. You'd have to, there's a little more, there are, but they're probably around 5% of the population. But compared to graduate studies, scholarships or funding opportunities for graduate studies. So if you're required to take the GRE, I would say the process of preparing and achieving it is still the same. That's why I called it a process, because there's a system of things that you have to do step by step. You have to meticulously follow circumspectly to get to what you want, because the GRE can be quite challenging. It can be quite a tough exam. So set a study timeline and a goal for the exam, meet it, and have a certain threshold of score that you want to get. You typically don't want to score below a certain threshold because the exam is also expensive. So you typically don't want to score below a certain threshold for the exam. So have a study timeline, have a goal, have an expectation for the kind of score that you're looking forward. There are practice exams that you can take over and over again. Even the GRE sponsoring exam institution, ETS, they have, I think, I don't know, I'm speaking as at 6 years ago now. They have 2 maximum practice test opportunities that you can take to test, how your possible performance in the actual exam. Someone wanted to say something.
No. Please go on.
Oh, okay. And whether GRE, contributes to your admission eventually, I'd say it's subjective. So GRE has, more weight in some schools than in others, because admissions are weighed holistically in most schools in this sense. Now, if you have a very good undergraduate transcript and say you did poorly in the GRE, so you got the maximum you can get in the GRE is 340. So say you got below 300, the threshold you typically don't want to go under is 310, but between 300 and 310 is still okay. But you typically don't want to, as much as you can, try to not go below 310 when you're in your scores. So let's say you go below 310 or even below 300, but you have a very good undergraduate transcript. So you graduated with a first class, so a very strong second class upper 2-1, you can make a case in your essays. Say something happened along the line, you genuinely, it's not a lie, you genuinely lost a family member and you had paid for the exam, it affected your study hours, or just life, whatever happened along the line, you can make a case for that in your essays to say, okay, this is the reason why I did not perform in the exam, and the exam is very expensive. I'm just trying to, it's all about the story, it's storytelling. I'll get to the essays. Okay.
Yeah. Please go on. I said it's all about the storytelling.
Yes. Okay. So then another aspect of preparation is also application fees. Application fees is probably something that scares people the most, and it's because it can be quite expensive, to say it as it is. For students, it can be quite expensive. It varies between, say, $65. Some you might find exceptional cases of like $50, but it varies between $65 to $805. Except you're applying to Stanford, then you're going way ahead of the board, and it's very achievable as well. So in that case, you can have a reservoir already. So say have a dorm account, or just have a dollar wallet, right in Nigeria, where you just begin to put, some money into that. That's like, just have a reservoir in dollars that you can set aside for that. I did that. Have a reservoir in dollars that you can set aside for that purpose, just that purpose alone. And you might get into all the schools you apply to, you might not get into all the schools you apply to, but it's an investment that you pay, it's a price you pay to invest in where you're going to the next possible future ahead of you. And not all schools also have application fees requirements. You need to look into that. Is it compulsory? What are the exceptions? Do they have a request, an opportunity to request for a waiver in terms of the application fee? If they do, make use of it. They may tell you a no, but there's no harm in trying. Go ahead and request for it. Send the email to whoever you need to send the email to from the website to request for a waiver. Tell them the conditions on which you're requesting for a waiver. And you just may never know. They may grant you the waiver where you don't have to pay the application fees. You just put in your application. So the next thing I'll talk about is the essays. In terms of preparation, start the essays. You might have to write up to 5, 6, 7 essays, depending on schools and programs again. You might have to write as many essays as required. And essays, again, are all about storytelling. You're telling a story. It's just telling them this is what this is about. This is there are times where you can say some things and there are times where you cannot, say some things. If you're asking you about why you're interested in our program, it's not necessarily the time to start marketing. It's more about the time to start to boost their ego, if that makes sense, to tell them why their program is the best fit, and in some ways why is the best, for what you're looking at, and why you are positioned as the right fit to be a good graduate from their institution. And there are some times where they could just ask for a story. So tell us what has been something that you've had to overcome and why, or just tell us the genesis or the story behind why you are interested in what you're studying. So if you're studying, say a STEM degree, it could be sponsored from a personal experience. Maybe you lost a loved one due to cancer, and because of that, you've just had that genuine interest to want to look into cancer research. And that is the truth. You tell that story. That is the time to bring in that art of storytelling in that direction and take it from there. So, and the second to the last thing I'll talk about with respect to preparation is all funding sources. So sources of funding. One of the things to also look out for in schools is whether the school or the schools have funding opportunities. Funding opportunities could come in different ways. The most popular ones are assistantships. So assistantships typically would cover your tuition fully and give you stipends, every month. And then you have to, in response to you doing some, say, either administrative duties, performing some administrative duties. So that means that you're schooling full time, but you're also keeping a bit of your work experience alive. You're just not, into full academia, you're also doing something active, or it could be research. You're participating in a particular research. So that's something that can also contribute to your resume on the side, or you're even teaching, or you're helping a teacher, you're subbing a teacher. So maybe you're conducting office hours for teachers. There's just, that would come in the form of a teaching assistantship. There are things that you also, get to do as, if I gain experience from it. You don't get to do it full time anyway, but then you get reimbursed in the form of stipends for it. And there are some opportunities also from the school that could come from, say, just grant fund opportunities. So say from graduates that have, graduated from the school, that are very old and have just decided to give back to the school and give a very huge bogus amount of money for people that fall into a certain category. So every semester we've allocated $5,000 to students like this, and then they just give you that straight funding opportunity. Sometimes it comes in the form of fellowships. So fellowships are also fully funded. There are times and conditions, and they vary per school. And then you get to get stipends for it as well. And then all you just have to probably do, depending on the program requirement, but most certainly you might have to just maybe submit a research, something that you're doing to show that you are, being proactive with the fellowship, with the fellowship that they have given to you. You're doing something productive with it. And if all else fails, you did not get a funding opportunity, you did not do anything, you did not, all doors just shut towards you as it comes to funding opportunities from the schools. What are alternative funding opportunities that you can get? I would say that due diligence begins from Nigeria, and it falls under your preparation. So what are the alternatives that you have? There are educational loan companies in Nigeria that offer student loans to Nigerians to school abroad, and they would give you the money, they reimburse the money directly to the institutions, and then they pay. So they basically pay for your tuition. Sometimes they give you stipends, and then you can pay for it depending on the terms and conditions that applies. There are a few educational loan companies in Nigeria that fall into that category where you can be able to, find those kind of opportunities and then do them. One I know is Empower Finance, Prodigy Finance, LendWise. Vesti might be able to give you more information about that as well, but it's up to you to still do the due diligence. In case all else fails, you also know where to fall back on. You're not stranded. You don't want to be stranded at any point in time. And the last thing I'll talk about with respect to preparation is prepare for interviews. There's a possibility that you might be granted an interview. So if you're granted an interview, they have read through your applications, they've decided on your application. There's something they've seen in your application that makes them want to consider you for a spot, for an opportunity, and they have decided to give you an interview. On the flip side, as the student, there's a very huge tendency to fall into the trap of overconfidence that, It's okay. It's gonna be fine. It's not a big deal. Like it's just go for the interview, and yeah, I'm sure they just want to ask me about my essays. I mean, I wrote the essay, so I know what is there. Or they want to ask me about why I'm choosing the school. I wrote that in the essay too, so I know what is there. No, please prepare for the interview. They typically will tell you what the interview will be about. So whether it's for scholarships, whether it's for admissions, whether it's for even assistantships or whatsoever it is. But please don't fall into that overconfidence pit hole and not prepare for the interview. I know it's very easy to fall in there, but please prepare for the interview. Go on the internet, search for what are the questions that write as many questions as possible that typically are asked in interviews like this and answer them, rehearse them over and over again. So you have until you have the best possible case for each question they can possibly throw at you. And then you come to the interview, practice over and over again. So you get there very confident, and then they know that, okay, this person, what they wrote in their essay is commensurate to who they are, to what we're seeing right in front of us. And then they give you the opportunity, because interviews, there are possibility that you might not pass the interview and then you don't get the opportunity just because you did not prepare for the interview. So that, I would say, is the last thing I'll talk about with respect to preparation, but also what a segue to the next key point I'll talk about, which is negotiation, if relevant. Sometimes you might have just one school that gave you the admission, and you might not need to negotiate any other offers, and you just the life has made, or circumstances have made it easy enough for you to just choose, and that's okay. It's just one school you're going to get into at the end of the day, so it's not a big problem. And sometimes I see it as, I'm a Christian, so a lot of my principles and value systems in life are drawn through biblical philosophy. That's how I sort of see a lot of things in life. So sometimes situations like that, I see it as an act of God. So you don't have to, because maybe God saw that you're going to make the wrong decision if He gives you too many attractive offers, and He saw it as an act of God to shut every other door and just give you this one opportunity. So you have no choice than to go into it. And if you listen to a lot more people that have had opportunities like that, they'll probably tell you that they ended up being the right opportunity, the right decision for them, that they got rejected and then they had to stick to this particular opportunity. More often than not, you would hear stories like that. So take it. You don't have any other problems or to worry about which schools to choose or not. But on the other hand, if you have options in your hand to choose from, there are key points that I think would help or guide your negotiation process along that line. One of it is relationships. So the relationships that you formed in the initial stage of positioning, relationships you found at conferences, you found at different open admission talks, you found that at webinars like this, you found at seminars, relationships like that, they can come in handy, yes, to help you review your essays in preparation, yes, but in this case, to also give you hindsight and foresight. By this time, you're students, you're the one applying, you probably have just insight, but this is a good time for you to meet with people who have foresight and hindsight, and that would also come in much later into the next key point I'll talk about. But then they can help you be able to say, okay, this is what I know about this school, this is the word I can put in for this school, just think about it and know if it's a good fit enough for you, for where you plan to go. And it's also not a time for marketing, because the entire process of positioning and preparation, submitting your application, that itself is marketing. So they know what you are made of. They already know, they know you, they know the value you can offer. You consequently, subsequently know the value that the school can offer as well. So it's not a time for marketing. It's not a time for saying, oh, I have this offer, and then getting back to this school and say, can you bid this offer? It's really not a time for that. I would not necessarily suggest approaching school decisions the way you approach job negotiations like that. There are two completely different fields. The industry is quite different from the academia. So there are cases where you might have to do that, but it's not necessarily the best decision, because in this case, they already know what you are made of and they know why they have decided to grant you an opportunity. What I think is necessary as a form of mindset in this phase is to find the most competitive offer for you and rank it on a scale of priority. So maybe find the first two competitive offers that you are really sure is the best fit for you, in terms of your career or your academics or whatsoever is your scale of preference, and then, or your weighing skill, and then rank the schools. Number one, this school. Number two, university of this. And so some of the things that can help with that is school ranking. So there are some schools that are known to be generally prestigious, but then when it comes to program, what is the ranking of the program in that school? So I'm a political scientist, for example, and this came in very handy in some decisions that I've had to make in terms of schooling. Say some Ivy League schools, they're Ivy League, of course, so they are known to be very prestigious. But in terms of ranking, some smaller schools, or slightly not as big as the Ivy League school, could rank very highly in political science, for example. And another thing to look at, so you're like, okay, that means their political science department is pretty solid. Sometimes it could be the fine arts department, sometimes it could be the business schools as well. So whatever the department is, that's something to also put into consideration. In addition to the general, prestige of the school or ranking of the school, what is the ranking of the department overall? Because that matters in the long run. Another thing to also consider is the direction of the school. So again, because I'm a political scientist, so this comes in very handy for me to keep this example. There are some schools where their program focuses directly on government. Excuse me. There are some schools where their program focuses directly on just the theoretical aspect of political science, so contributing to knowledge, letting us understand how elections work. Why did this president win? Why didn't this president win? Why do people behave the way they do? Why are democracies like this? Just different things. And there are some programs that their big emphasis is on pumping people into government, making sure that people are pumped at the helm of government, at the seat of government, to make the right decisions for the country. There are some other programs where the only thing they're interested in is non-profit. Not necessarily only thing they're interested in, but there's a very big emphasis on preparing people for non-profit, to be giants in the non-profit sector, for example, to know how to lobby their way in government, to know how to, impact, policies just by virtue of being a non-governmental body. So it's left for you to also know, based on my experience, based on where I'm going, the focus of this school. Would I be able to learn what I want to learn, or is their focus when it comes to political science very different? It's the same with respect to public health or just any other degree as well. What exactly is their focus? Is the department focus? That's also something that comes in your negotiation process as well. And I think one also very big thing, which is the last thing I'll talk about with respect to negotiation, is the success rate of their graduates. So where have their graduates gone past graduation? What fields have they gone into? What have they continued to do afterwards? What fields, what spheres of life have they, in terms of direction, have they, continued into, 1 year down the line, 2 years, 5 years down the line? You look at all those things as well. You might want to reach out to one of them and, ask questions. And people are really nice. That's something that I think I've come to realize, that people are nicer than I used to think they were. So people actually would respond to your messages on LinkedIn or your cold emails. People, sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't, maybe because they didn't get it, or maybe because they forgot, or maybe because they just don't want to, for any reason. But more often than not, you'll be surprised that they would actually respond. So that's also something to look at. Why is there a pattern in the direction of field at which their graduates have always tended to? Is there a likelihood that I get into this program and I also tend into that direction? If I tend into that direction, is that really in line with where I want to go? If it is, then it helps you make your decision. If it's not, then you know that, okay, this might not be a good fit for me, but it helps you in your ranking. So you've ranked the best of schools, but you also need to rank it rightly with respect to this key focal, this strategic points that I've talked about. Then the fourth key point I'll talk about is decision making. So you've negotiated. Negotiation is more about what's the best offer out there. Decision making is now more about yourself. Yeah, I know what the best offer is, but how do I know that this best offer I've chosen would actually get me to where I want? There's this book I read several years ago by Clayton Christensen. The book is titled How Will You Measure Your Life? And a very life-changing book. But there's a part of the book that, got me thinking for several years, and I still do. And it is, it was written by a Harvard Business School professor. And, seeing patterns of, his classmates 20 years down the line, and two of them apparently went to jail sometime along the line. And it's like nobody ever sets out to go to jail. But how do you know that even from now, the decisions you take would get you to where you want to go? Most of the time, we know what we want to do. We have a big picture. But how sure are you that the decisions you are taking each day, the discipline you're taking each day, the consciousness, the intentionality behind your motivations, your mindset, your value systems would actually get you to where you're going? What is the assurance that what you do will get you to where you're going? So it comes in here too, in terms of decision making. You know the school now that is the best option for you. But how are you sure that going to this school, making this decision will take you to where you're going to go eventually? Another thing is decision making, your dreams to relocate. At the end of the day, I got an admission into US, I got an admission into UK. How am I sure US is even the best fit in terms of country? For me, isn't in line with my long-term dream. Or maybe you want to get to the US and go somewhere else or go back to Nigeria. Whatsoever it is, that's where more long-term decisions begin to come into play for you. And sometimes it could be that this school that I have is really good, it's the best fit for me, but it's just a year. The program is just less than 2 years. But this school is more than 2 years. I think I need more time to think. Let me go with the 2-year school, which will help me really strategize properly. So it's not necessarily more about the school ranking now. It's not more about the long-term focus of where you're going. It's not more about the goal of what are your long-term plans. And I've had to make decisions like that too. Long-term plans trumped what I would say should be the prestige of a particular school or nothing. And it's really, it was very strategically done, a lot of thoughts went into it, but it ended up being the best choice, making decision from that perspective. What exactly do I think is going to be the long-term goal? Is this going to contribute to that long-term goal? Is it going to sweep me away? Sometimes getting into a big school puts you in a big city. Sometimes you want to, the best thing for you might probably be to get into a smaller city, get into a small school. There's this philosophy of big fish in a small tank, small fish in a big tank. None of it are necessarily wrong or correct. It just depends on the phase of life you're in. Is this the right time of life for you to be the big fish in a small school? Or is this the right time for you to be the small fish in a big school and get lost? Sometimes you might say, oh, I don't have that much success in my undergraduate. So going to being a big fish in a small school would set me as the top of my class, and we beat whatever undergraduate record I've had. And especially maybe you only did averagely well in GRE. That's a time for you. Nobody cares what school you went to. The most important thing is you're at the top of your class. That's all that matters. And then when you're writing to wherever you're going, you are at the top of your class. You graduated with a 4.0. It doesn't, your undergraduate records kind of take the back seat now at this point because you became a big fish in a small tank. Some other time, it might be necessary for you to be a small fish in a big tank. So you go to a very big school, you go to a big, a school where that there are a lot more smarter people than you are. There's a tendency for you to sort of stagger somewhere in the middle because this is school of big brains. But if it doesn't matter to you, with respect to where you think you're going next from there, it might not matter to you whether you've graduated top of your class or low of your class. The most important thing is that you know fully well that this is where you're going to, and this particular opportunity that you're seeking for post-school, doesn't matter where what ranking of school you graduate, what position of class you graduated from. So all that matters is just the ranking of the school. So that's another thing to take into consideration when making, this decision making. It becomes more personal and more reflective to say. Now, the last key point I'll talk about is reality. Reality, which is, now you're in the United States, you got what you wanted, you visualized it, you build the mindset in your mind, you let it brood, you pursued after it, and you got it. And now you're in the US. So now what next? There are challenges in itself that comes with being in the United States, no, or anywhere else, with relocating generally, especially as a student. Being an international student can be quite can be quite tough in its own self, can be quite, I mean, you've taken a lot of these considerations into mind. You are now in a position where you have to make trade-offs. You've considered the school. Sometimes you might have to, choose a school where you pay, you probably don't have to pay much. Maybe they offered you full funding, but then they tell you that you have to pay health insurance. You are responsible for your health insurance, and health insurance is mandatory for every international student. So you have to look for how to go about that. Or sometimes they tell you that, okay, we'll cover everything else. Well, we won't give you housing. So you have to go and look for your housing by yourself. You have to navigate all that challenges, navigate how to, go about that. Or sometimes they give you a good opportunity, but because you're in a big school, or in a big city for that matter, the standard of living is not different from this other school that was offering you less. Because at the end of the day, when you measure the GDP per capita for that big city, school in the big city and the school in the small city, it ends up being the same thing you spend per month because of, higher cost of living. Yeah, so all of that as possible challenges that you might have to do after considering your trade-offs and now being here. The United States is a very car-dependent society, so mobility can be a challenge in initial stages, of moving around, trying to move around. You might need a car at some point, and these are instances. You might need a church community if you're a Christian, or a mosque community if you're a Muslim. That leads me to my next point of community, because this is where relationships come in again. Again, I've talked about relationships in each of the focal points. This is where relationship comes in again. Don't be afraid to offer help. Quite frankly, I think Americans can be quite helpful when they see visitors, in their new people in their community. They're just nice, more often than not. I mean, you're not trying to come and condemn their society because they can smell those things from afar too. You don't need to speak, they just smell it. So, but just come in with you don't care about what they do with their society. Your own is your goal. You have your goal. You know what you want to do. Whatever decisions they want to make, whether it's in line with your moral judgment or not, it's not your business. Your business is your focus and why you came there. Because again, they can smell those things from afar. So just stick to your goal and stick to your focus. And you would really see, you would really receive more help than you think you'd get in that sense, or even from your religious community, whatsoever the community is. You're most likely to receive help from there. Just have community. And at the end of the day, the more you begin to participate in your community, the more you begin to filter out which community, who you want around you based on your value systems, whether you want. So it's very easy sometimes to tend to the crowd. And if you're not careful, you can easily find yourself among some certain mindsets that are not appropriate for your long-term stability, to put it that way. And you don't want that around you, because the people you surround yourself with really do matter how far you can go sometimes. And sometimes you might be interested in going back to whatever you plan to just do post-school. Your relationships really matter. And again, because relationships are currency, people can be quite resourceful as well. You want to also, sort of diplomatically find relationships that are very resourceful, that give you a lot of information about what is going on. You just want to be in the know as much as possible. And that also again aligns with your value systems and your vision post-school. And your after-school plan, which sort of touched on that as well, with respect to settling in. And with respect to settling in, I think another thing I also want to very much emphasize is that nowhere is easy, and that would be the last thing I'm gonna end with. No, there's no easy route anyway. There's no easy. Relocation itself is hard, and I mean hard, very difficult. There are days you'd cry, there are days you'd laugh, there are days you would go with the flow, and there are days you would feel everything. It's a hard route, but it's a very rewarding route. I can tell you that for sure. It is a very rewarding route. If you want to go the easy way is hard too. And that's what a lot of people don't tell you. It is hard too, but just go the hard route, pay the price, pay your dues, go through the process. It's a process, and you would come out of it eventually. And in the process, don't be carried away by people who are like, you came to school, but you're already doing big boy. Don't be carried away. Anyway, but you should just know what is driving you, know the propeller behind your rocket, and learn to abound and abase. Again, I'm a Christian, so that sort of comes into biblical philosophy, comes into how I view life a lot. I'm reminded of Paul's letter to the Philippians, where there was the emphasis on, I'm just as happy with as little as with as much. So whether I'm hungry, whether being full, whether my hands are empty, I have found the recipe for happiness. I found the recipe to remain joyful, to sustain my joy. So I have learned now to be quite content with whatever circumstances. And I think that's a very powerful and profound way to view life, no matter the situation you are in, because it's life wherever whatever you think, except you are born to an extremely influential family, which of course is not devoid of its own vicissitudes when it comes to life. But in instances like this, the purpose of this webinar, the recipients, the respondents, in as far as this webinar is concerned, it's very important to know that it's to learn how to abound and how to abase with whatever life throws at you, to learn to be content and to learn to just live accordingly with it. And I think that brings me to the end, or I don't know, it's kind of, I think I'm a bit spent on time, but that brings me to the end of my presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Atinuke. Powerful submissions that you've given. Thank you. Very, very powerful and insightful. I'm sure our jotters and notes are filled up with a lot of nuggets right now. Like, very, very interesting conversation that we've had. And of course, we could see the reflection of your own experiences from those submissions that you've given. Like, it's quite enriching, and I'm sure many people have learned a lot from those submissions that you've given. Thank you so much. I'll just take a few questions. I have 3 questions in the chat box. I'll just take those 3 questions, then we'll try to round up the session as quick as possible. The first question there, it says, please, in terms of admission, can CGPA affect admission?
Okay. I'm assuming that you want me to answer them one by one, or?
All right, let me just take the 3 questions, then you can just give an overview.
Okay, all right.
So the second question there says, please, can someone still apply for fall 2024 by now? Can someone apply for fall 2024 by now? And the final question there says, I'm currently doing my master's in the UK. Luckily, I have seen a PhD opportunity. However, I am not sure if to send a mail to the professor at this time. Yeah, so I think you can take the 3 questions now.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of CGPA, can it affect admissions? I would say it's subjective to you at the end of the day. It's yes, if your undergraduate CGPA was not good enough, you can supplement it with one GRE, taking the GRE, studying as hard as possible as you can for the GRE, just to say meet a particular threshold. So pay the price to study for the GRE. Let them wonder when they're reviewing your admissions, this GRE does not commensurate with this GPA. And then when they read your essay, they find the connection points. Oh, it's because something happened or whatever. Life happens, right? And then people at some point or the other decide to just make themselves better and then do better. And that's what, this person might have decided to do. And then they understand and they're probably encouraged that, okay, this person seems like it might be a good fit for our program, because they just love your ability to look back and then look within and then be from those 2 points, look forward. And this is very essential to life success at the end of the day. And sometimes some departments might not necessarily be interested in that. They're necessarily interested in, okay, we don't care whether you have ability to introspect or retrospect. What we know is, are you going to ever succeed in life, so that we can boast about you? That might just be their focus. So he might go in that ways. And this is where schools comes from. School selection, just as I sort of alluded to earlier on, comes from looking for the school that can give you the most, best, that you could be the most best possible fit towards, and then, making your own research, making your due diligence. Is this school, what are their focus areas? Do I have extracurricular activities that can supplement for it? Do I have a standardized test like GRE that can supplement for it? Do I have a story myself that can supplement for it? Is the school going to value that? And they'll typically put those things on their websites. What are their focus when it comes to their students? Whatever exactly are they looking forward to? And sometimes if you don't want to risk paying the application fee, reach out to a student in that school and ask those questions, or reach out to a professor and sort of present your best professional image before them and make that inquiry. This is your profile. Don't involve GPA necessarily. Just say this is your professional profile, or this is your research profile. This is what you're looking forward to doing. Are they accepting students, or do they think would they encourage you to apply? Sometimes they'll say no, don't apply, and sometimes they will tell you, yeah, I think you should apply. So you see, it's quite subjective. It's not a zero-sum game. So for that question, it's subjective. There is no yes or no response to it. It depends on, again, you have to do the work. It depends on the level of work that you put into to holistically position your best fit forward. Then the second opportunity is it too late to apply for fall 2024 by now? It might be. If I want to speak based on general admissions rule, yes, it is. But then again, there might be exceptions. Reach out to the school. Either reach out to the graduate, to the department. The secretary will typically reply you. The secretary of the department, reach out to the department and ask the question. If it's too late, they'll tell you it's too late. If it's not too late, they will tell you, yeah, send your application forward. We can make a concession for you. And if it's too late, they would encourage you to apply for spring. Now it's probably the best time to, still put in forward for spring application. People typically want to resume in the fall just because it's the start of the academic year. But resuming in the spring too is possible if you want it. It's very possible. So speaking based on admissions rule, yes, I would say it's great, because now is typically when admission decisions are released for fall 2024. So people will get to know whether they got into the schools they applied to last year or not. So yes, but still ask, because America can be quite, some schools can be quite flexible in that regard. So still ask. Then you have a PhD opportunity. This question is a bit equivocal because I'm not sure if you already got into the PhD program or not, but I'm going to answer the questions from both angles. So if you already got into the PhD program, by now you probably already have a professor you've been assigned to, either based on what you intend to do since it's a PhD program, or based on your assistantship, if you were offered an assistantship. If you're not offered an assistantship and you were offered a fellowship, you probably have a professor that you were also assigned to as a liaison, one way or the other. And I'm not very sure what you want to email the professor about. But if you've already gotten admitted into the school, then those two cases would apply to you. You already have a liaison, which is someone in that department already that you can ask any questions that you have. And sometimes professors are pretty nice when it comes to settling in. They will just either connect you with another student to help you settle in, or they will just give you tips. Oh, do this, don't come in through this airport. When you come in, get to this housing, or, so if those are the things you are interested in asking for, yes, you can, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, you can reach out to the international student body of the school, which they are also helpful in that regard. And if you do not yet have the admission, so you just like the school and you think it's a good fit for you and you're considering the school, I would say send an email to the professor. If you don't get a response, send another email. They probably didn't get the email because it's from an outside the .edu, outside the school's mailing system. So they probably didn't get the email. I would say send another email to them and ask about whatever you want to ask for in terms of, I'm guessing whether you're a good fit for their department or whether they're accepting students or not. I think that's all the questions. Oh, there's another question, right?
Yeah, it's just another one that says, can you combine the two certificates, undergraduate degree with 2.2 and master degree with a good grade for your master degree or PhD in the USA? I don't know if you got that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you have I don't know where your master's degree is from anyway, but even if it's from Nigeria, absolutely. As long as your master's degree was with a very good grade, to me, that makes a case for your undergraduate already. And with your master's degree, you most likely already have some form of research background already. So I would say put emphasis on that research background that you have built, especially since you're now going into a PhD program, which is very research intensive. Put an emphasis on that research background you have built in your master's degree, and just set that as a key point in your essays on your correspondence with the liaison in the school, and then use it as to propel yourself forward into your best fit forward into the program. So yes, absolutely. As long as if you have a good master's degree with a good grade, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Atinuke. Just very quickly, I will bring on board Olubumi Okpadoyi, who will just give us an overview of what our education pathway is here at Vesti. Because I could see some questions, someone asking about how do I get started on this. This will really give you some kind of insight and let you know how Vesti can really guide you to kickstart the process as soon as possible. Yeah, Olubumi Okpadoyi, just give us what about the education pathway at Vesti, and how can members of the listening audience take advantage of it?
All right. I must say, well done, Atinuke. You've really broken down a lot into tidbits. And I think the only summary I can give to it is everything she stated there is more like do it yourself. But if you want Vesti to partner with you, to work with you on every bit of this process, then you can reach out to us with the link that's been earlier sent. The first thing we like to do is have what we call an insight session, so you know what the entire process entails, what we will be doing, what will be required of you, and the timelines for the process. However, I must add a caveat, like she earlier said, when it comes to scholarships. Most times, they do not grant to undergraduates, and even the opportunities open to graduates, they belong to independent bodies a lot of times. So we do not work with funding or scholarships, but what we look out for are graduate assistantships, like she said. So should the schools being applied to, have open graduate assistantships, of course, we would also assist with applications for all of those to make sure that you're well settled in whatever prospective school or country you will be going into. So it's more like a 100% work with me process with guaranteed support. So that's an overview of what education pathway is all about.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Olubumi. Thank you. Thank you once again, Atinuke. I'm going to come back to you to give your final words. I'm going to come back to you, but let me just do kind of a conclusive statement right now. If you are just joining us in the middle of this, I want to please encourage you to visit our YouTube page to watch the recording. This is being streamed live on YouTube, so you can still go back to watch and listen to those details, tiny details that she gave earlier on the submission. Like, you will find them very valuable. Trust me, you'll find those very beautiful insights valuable. And of course, if there are other valuable content on the YouTube page, free webinars that we've done in the past that speaks to how you can access funding opportunities in the US, how to access studying opportunities in the US, and even outside of the US, you can find many of those free resources right on our YouTube page. So do well to go back to our YouTube page to watch this session, and you'll be able to take those tiny details if peradventure you miss them. Again, this is Vesti. If this is also your first time of hearing about Vesti, Vesti is a migration fintech company, and we are the preferred provider of legal and financial services for immigrants from the moment that you decide that you want to move from a source country to another destination country, and every moment after. We have different services that we provide. We can, if you're interested in the special talent visas, like the visas for people with extraordinary abilities, the US O1 visa, the EB1 visa, the EB2 NIW visa, even the UK Global Talent Visa by the UK Tech Nation, the Canada Startup Visa. Many of these visa types we can help you with them. You want to access tourism visiting visas, and you need a trusted company to help you with the process, we can always guide you through that. If you're interested in migration loans, you want to school abroad, you need international students loan, to fund your schooling abroad, we can always help you. However, our international students loan, we only help you to study in Canada or in the USA. And you must be putting in for a STEM-related course or MBA-related course. We're able to guide you through that process through our partner provider that will be able to guide you on that. That is the International Students Loan. And we also have Migration Support Loan. Perhaps you've done everything and all that is left for you is to book a flight, to get to your destination country, and you don't have the finances. We are there to also help you with what we call our small ticket size loans that you can pay back within 6 to 9 months, of your going, and you can meet some of those very immediate expenses that you have to cover. Also, proof of funds. You need POF, proof of funds. Vesti can always help you with some of these services. Again, I want to encourage you to please download the Vesti app on Google Play or App Store, where you can access all these migration pathways that we've talked about, and of course, our financial services, virtual dollar cards, and Naira debit cards, and the multi-currency wallet on the app. You can book a flight, booking a flight feature, speaking to an Anthony. You want to speak to an immigration lawyer on our team, on which migration pathway you want to take advantage of. That is very possible right on the Vesti app. And interestingly, we also have what we call Maya, which is called the Migration AI. So on the Vesti app, you can ask Maya any question in respect to migration, and just think about it like your ChatGPT for migration, and that is integrated into the Vesti app, and you get answers to any of your burning questions in respect to migration. Once again, I want to really appreciate you for the quality time you spent with us on this webinar today, discussing about how our wonderful guest was able to secure zero tuition to study in a top university in the USA. And very quickly, I'll just yield the floor to her to give us our final words this evening on this webinar.
Okay, thank you, Phil. I think you said it all, but I think something that I think is also necessary for me to say is to thank you too for the audience. Thank you, Ms. Olubunmi too. I'm happy to know that I'm encouraged to know that Vesti does good work, and most importantly, the methodical aspect in helping people to visualize these dreams, and not just visualize it, to even see it come to pass. And you're not just interested in just getting there, you're also interested in settlement, stability, which can be a very big part of relocation, or a very big part of studying abroad, especially when you come to realize that, okay, I think this place is a good fit for me. I think I want to contribute more to this country, or even if you want to go somewhere else, but especially if you've decided to contribute more to this country. I like those different routes that you also provide for students, for individuals along that route. I'm very encouraged to know that. So thank you again for the audience, and good job to Vesti too.
Thank you, Atinuke. Thank you so much. Olubunmi, please say your final words.
Okay, so for me, I would like to thank Mr. Atinuke for coming on and to breaking it down in bits. But I would also like to implore everyone that it can get overwhelming doing it alone, like Atinuke earlier mentioned. However, if you're thinking migration, if you're thinking global dreams, then the first thing I want you to think is Vesti, because you have guaranteed support from the start to the very finish. And we look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Yes, thank you so much. That summarizes it. Let's walk you through the process, and let's help you achieve your migration dreams and aspirations. Thank you so much for joining us from wherever. You must have joined us from across the globe. I could see a lot of people from Lagos, UK, Abuja, Kano, I think some from Plateau State. Thank you so much for creating the time to join us. Once again, my name is Ifeoluwa Ariyo Agbaje. I'm the Partnerships and Communications Lead at Vesti, and it's goodbye from here till we see you again on the next webinar at Vesti. Thank you very much.